This is it, the moment Heartland fans have been waiting for. Ty and Nathan, two men whose paths have been filled with conflict, resentment, and unspoken pain, are about to face each other for the last time. No distractions, no one to step in. Just the two of them, standing at the edge of a conversation that will change everything. Their history has been filled with battles over pride, family, and love. But tonight, it all comes down to words. The question is simple. Will this final conversation bring peace, or will it leave scars that never heal? The night had fallen quietly over the Heartland ranch. The air was heavy, carrying the scent of hay and wood, with the faint rustle of horses shifting in their stalls. The sky above was painted in deep shades of blue, with the last hints of daylight fading into darkness. It was a night that felt calm on the surface but tense beneath, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Ty stood near the barn doors, his hands tucked into his jacket, staring out into the quiet fields. He wasn't here by accident. He knew Nathan would come. The silence of the ranch pressed in around him, giving him too much time to think. He thought about Amy, about the life they had fought so hard to build, about their daughter who was sleeping peacefully inside the house. He thought about how much he had already lost in his life and how determined he was not to lose any more. In the distance, he heard footsteps crunching on gravel. Slow, steady, deliberate. Ty's body tensed, his jaw tightening as the sound grew closer. He turned his head slightly, not surprised to see Nathan approaching from the shadows. Nathan's figure was sharp against the dim light, his eyes cold, his posture rigid. He wasn't here for small talk. This was a man who carried a storm inside him, a storm that had been brewing for years, and tonight he was ready to let it loose. For a moment, neither spoke. They just looked at each other, the silence stretching like a rope pulled too tight. Ty's heart beat heavier in his chest, but his face stayed calm. Nathan stopped a few steps away, his eyes fixed on Ty with a mixture of anger and something else. Something harder to define. Regret? Envy? Maybe both. The barn lights cast long shadows behind them, making the scene look almost like a painting of two men locked in a timeless standoff. Ty shifted his weight, standing tall, refusing to break eye contact. This wasn't the first time he had dealt with Nathan's bitterness, but it felt different tonight. There was a finality in the air, a sense that they had reached the end of a long and bitter road. Nathan's lips curled into a tight line, but he still didn't speak. Ty knew this silence well. It was the silence before the storm, the pause before the first sharp word cut through the air. Inside, Ty's thoughts raced. He remembered every moment Nathan had tried to come between him and Amy. Every subtle jab, every challenge thrown his way. But he also remembered the times when Nathan's pain had shone through. The rare glimpses of a man who had never truly found his place. Ty wasn't here to fight, but he also wasn't going to back down. Tonight was about truth, and it was going to be spoken whether Nathan was ready or not. And so the stage was set. Two men, two histories, one final conversation. The barn creaked as the night wind pushed against it, and the horses shifted restlessly as if they could feel the weight of what was about to unfold. Ty drew a slow breath, steadying himself, knowing the next words spoken would shape everything that came after. Nathan narrowed his eyes, his shoulders tightening, and in that tense silence, it began. The silence between Ty and Nathan was sharp enough to cut. The barn's lights swung slightly in the wind, sending shifting shadows across their faces. Ty's voice broke the quiet first, low but firm, as if he had been holding back these words for far too long. "You didn't come here to talk about the weather," Ty said, his eyes never leaving Nathan's. Nathan gave a short laugh, but it wasn't the sound of amusement. It was bitter, hollow. He stepped closer, his boots scraping against the gravel, and tilted his head as if he was measuring Ty, deciding how far he could push. "You always think you've got me figured out, don't you?" Nathan's tone carried both accusation and exhaustion. "Like you know every reason I do what I do." "But you don't, Ty. You never have." Ty stood his ground, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "I don't need to know every reason, Nathan. I just know the damage you've done." Nathan's eyes flashed, a spark of defiance. "Damage? I've been standing in your shadow since the moment I stepped foot in this place. You act like you're some hero, holding the ranch together, keeping Amy safe, being the perfect husband, the perfect father. But let's not pretend. You've made mistakes too. Plenty of them? The words hit like a thrown stone, but Ty didn't flinch. Instead, he let the sting linger for a moment before answering, his voice steady. I've made mistakes, yeah? But I've owned them. I've worked through them. Can you say the same, Nathan? Or do you just run from them, blame everyone else until you're the victim in your own story? Nathan's face hardened, but there was a flicker in his eyes, something unsettled. He shifted his weight, his fists clenching at his sides. You think you're better than me, don't you? That's the truth, isn't it? You think you deserve all of this more than I ever did. Ty's gaze softened just a little, though his words stayed sharp. No, Nathan, I don't think I'm better. I just chose differently. I chose to stay, to fight for the people I love, to build something instead of tearing it apart. For a moment, Nathan faltered, his mouth opening as if to respond, but no words came. The air between them was thick, heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. The horses inside the barn stamped nervously, as though they could feel the storm pressing closer. Ty took a slow step forward, closing the space between them. His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper, but it carried more force than a shout. You came here tonight because you wanted to end this, so let's end it. No more half-truths, no more pretending. You've been carrying this grudge for too long, Nathan. So tell me, what is it you really want from me? Nathan's breathing quickened, his chest rising and falling as his emotions battled for control. He looked away for the first time, staring into the darkness beyond the barn, as if the answer might be out there somewhere in the shadows. His lips parted, but the words refused to come. The silence stretched again, but now it wasn't just tense. It was dangerous, because this time the truth was closer than ever, and once it was spoken, there would be no turning back. The barn door creaked slightly in the wind, the sound echoing like a reminder that the night was listening. Ty waited, his eyes steady, his patience thin. Nathan swallowed hard, finally turning back, his expression torn between anger and something deeper, something raw. He was ready to speak, but whether it would be confession or attack, no one could tell. And in that moment, the real conversation began. Nathan's voice finally broke the silence, sharp and trembling like glass about to shatter. Do you want to know what I really want, Ty? I want to stop feeling like I'm invisible. Like no matter how hard I fight, how hard I work, I'll always come second. Second to you. Second to this ranch. Second to Amy. The words hung heavy, raw, and unpolished. For the first time, Nathan's anger cracked open to reveal something deeper. Something Ty had suspected but never heard out loud. Ty's shoulders eased just slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on Nathan. You think I've had it easy, Ty said softly. But I've been fighting my whole life. For a place to belong. For Amy's trust. For every piece of ground I stand on now. None of it was handed to me. Not one thing. Nathan's fists unclenched, but his jaw trembled as if holding back more than rage. Holding back years of swallowed words. You had her heart. Do you get that? You had it from the start. And me, I was just standing there, watching her smile at you the way I wanted her to smile at me. Do you have any idea what that does to a man? Ty inhaled slowly, his chest tight, the words hitting deeper than expected. He glanced down for a moment, then back up, meeting Nathan's eyes. Yeah, I do, because I've been on the outside too. I know what it's like to want something so much it feels like it's a part of your skin. But Nathan, there's a difference. You wanted Amy to fill the holes in your life. I wanted to build a life with her. That's why she chose me. Not because I'm better, but because I let her choose, and I stayed when things got hard. Nathan's expression twisted, a mix of shame and fury. His voice cracked, louder now. You think I didn't stay? You think I didn't try? I gave everything I had, and it still wasn't enough. Nothing I do is ever enough. His hands shook as he pointed toward the barn, toward the house beyond. This place eats people like me alive, people who aren't born to belong here. The confession spilled out like a wound finally bleeding. Ty stepped closer, his voice firm but no longer cold. Nathan, belonging doesn't come from land or barns or even from Amy. It comes from who you decide to be. And right now, you're letting anger define you. You're letting envy write your story. Nathan's eyes burned, but for a moment he couldn't answer. The fight in him faltered, replaced by something more fragile. His shoulders sagged under the weight of everything he had carried, and his voice lowered, almost a whisper. Then tell me, Ty, if you were in my place, always watching someone else live the life you dreamed of, would you really be any different? Ty froze. The question lingered between them like smoke, bitter and suffocating. He searched Nathan's eyes, and for the first time, he saw not just an enemy, but a reflection of his own past, of the boy he once was, lost and angry, desperate for love. No, Ty admitted quietly. Maybe I wouldn't, but I had people who helped me change. And so do you, if you'd stop pushing them away. Nathan's breath caught, his chest rising and falling unevenly. The barn seemed smaller now, the walls closing in with the weight of two men standing at the edge of truth. For the first time in years, Nathan's anger gave way to silence. Not the silence of defiance, but of realization. And in the barn was quiet again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was heavier, swollen with everything that had just been said. Nathan stood there like a man stripped of his armor, his chest rising fast, his eyes darting as if he wanted to fight, but had nothing left to swing with. Ty didn't move closer, didn't press. He simply waited, giving space for Nathan's storm to find its breaking point. Finally, Nathan's voice cracked open, not loud, not sharp, but broken. Do you know what it's like to look at yourself every day and feel like you're just not enough? To try harder, to run faster, to hold tighter, and still watch everything you want slip into someone else's hands? His words trembled, each one carrying the weight of years. I spent so long pretending I was strong, pretending I didn't care. But I did. I cared so much it ate me alive. Ty's eyes softened, though his stance stayed firm. He knew this moment wasn't about victory or defeat. It was about truth finally finding its way out. His voice was steady, calm, but edged with empathy. I know that feeling, Nathan. I've been there. Before Amy, before Heartland, I was just a kid who didn't believe I had a future. I pushed people away. I hurt people who cared about me, because it felt easier than admitting I was scared. The only difference between us is I stopped running from it. You still are. Nathan's throat tightened. He blinked hard, his jaw clenching, but his shoulders sagged under the weight of Ty's words. For the first time, his anger didn't rush to cover the cracks. It fell away, leaving nothing but the man beneath. So what am I supposed to do, huh? Just let go? Just accept that I'll never be what I thought I could be? Ty stepped forward now, not with aggression, but with purpose. His voice was low, honest. No one's asking you to give up, Nathan, but you have to stop clawing at something that isn't yours. Amy isn't yours. This ranch isn't yours. What you need to do is figure out what is yours, what you can build without tearing someone else down to get it. The words hit Nathan hard. He staggered back a step, not physically pushed, but struck by the truth. His eyes glistened, not with fury, but with something far rarer, pain he couldn't hide. He ran a hand over his face, dragging it down slowly as though trying to wipe away the years of resentment that clung to him. His voice was hoarse, almost childlike when he spoke again. And if I don't know what that is? If all I've ever known is chasing after what I can't have? Ty's answer was simple, but it landed like a stone dropped in still water. Then start over. Start small. Find one thing, one reason to get up tomorrow that isn't about me or Amy or this place. Build from there. It's the only way. Nathan's lips parted, but no reply came. His chest heaved with uneven breaths. His face caught between pride and surrender. The fight that had burned so long in his eyes flickered, dimmed, and for the first time, he looked not like Ty's rival, but like a man searching for a way out of his own prison. The turning point wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, fragile, almost invisible. But it was there. A shift, a crack in the wall Nathan had spent years building, and a chance, just a chance, that he might finally let it fall. Nathan stood frozen, his chest still rising and falling with uneven breaths. The anger that had once given him strength now seemed to drain away. leaving him hollow. For the first time, he didn't look like Ty's rival. He looked like a man on the edge of surrender, someone who had carried too much for too long. The barn lights flickered slightly as if the night itself were waiting for his answer. "I don't know if I can," Nathan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Letting go, it sounds simple when you say it. But when you've built your whole life around trying to prove something, it feels like cutting yourself open." His eyes searched Ty's face, desperate for some kind of roadmap. "What if I don't know who I am without this fight?" Ty's jaw tightened, not from anger but from the weight of what he was hearing. He took a step closer, his boots crunching softly against the gravel. "Then maybe that's the point. Maybe this fight has been holding you back from finding out who you really are. You keep chasing what you can't have, and it keeps you blind to what you could build. And I'm telling you right now, Nathan, it's not too late to change that." Nathan let out a sharp breath, shaking his head. Too late. That's all it ever feels like. I burned bridges I can't rebuild. I hurt people I can't fix things with. You think one conversation changes that?" Ty didn't flinch. "No, one conversation doesn't fix everything, but it can be the start. You want to know the truth? I didn't believe in myself for years. Amy did. And because of her, I learned how to fight for something real. You don't need Amy for that. You don't need to beat me for that. You need to stop running from yourself." The words landed like hammer blows, not cruel, but unshakable. Nathan's eyes darted downward, his voice trembling. "And if I try and I fail again? What then? What if all I am is this? Resentment, jealousy, failure?" Ty's tone softened, steady as a hand reaching out in the dark. "Then at least you'll know you tried for something better. That's more than this bitterness will ever give you. You think you're defined by what you lost, Nathan, but you're defined by what you do next. That's the truth." The barn creaked under the weight of the wind outside, the horses shifting as if sensing the fragile peace inching closer. Nathan's face twisted, his lips trembling as he swallowed down emotions he had never allowed himself to voice. He turned slightly, staring into the night, his eyes catching the faint silver of the moonlight. It was in that stillness that Ty saw it. The smallest shift. Not a victory, not forgiveness, but a crack in the armor Nathan had carried for years. A man at war with himself finally seeing that maybe, just maybe, the war could end. Nathan's voice came low, almost a confession. "I don't hate you, Ty. I wanted to. God, I tried to. But the truth is, I hated what you reminded me of. Everything I wasn't. Everything I couldn't be." He dragged in a deep breath, his shoulders trembling. "And I don't know what to do with that now." Ty didn't rush to answer. He let the words hang, heavy and raw, before speaking with quiet certainty. "You start by walking away from this fight, not as a coward, as a man who finally chooses peace." Nathan's eyes glistened as he met Ty's steady gaze. The barn felt smaller now, the night heavier, as if all of Heartland was listening. For the first time there was no shouting, no bitterness, only a fragile possibility hanging in the air. The night pressed down on the barn like a heavy blanket, the only sounds the shifting of horses, and the quiet rasp of two men breathing through the tension. Ty didn't move. He knew the next moment wasn't his to command. Nathan stood in the half-light, his fists loose at his sides, his eyes lowered as if the dirt beneath his boots might offer him answers. For so long, Nathan had built himself out of defiance. His strength was in his resistance, his ability to stand firm even when he was wrong. But now his posture broke, his shoulders sank, his chest rose unevenly, and when he finally looked up at Ty, the fight was gone. What remained wasn't weakness but exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying a war inside yourself for too many years. "You think peace is a choice," Nathan said, his voice hoarse, "but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like giving up." Ty shook his head slowly. His tone was calm, steady, unflinching. "It's not giving up. It's deciding you don't need to win every battle to be a man. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away before the fight eats you alive." Nathan's lips parted as though to argue, but no words came. His eyes darted to the barn, to the faint glow of the house beyond, where laughter and warmth lived without him. For the first time, he didn't step forward to claim it. He stayed where he was, rooted in the knowledge that it wasn't his to take. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "She really loves you, doesn't she?" Ty didn't hesitate. "Yes, she does. And I love her. That's not something either of us can change." The words cut, but not like a blade, more like a release. Nathan nodded once, slowly, as if each movement carried a lifetime of surrender. He blinked hard, eyes shimmering under the barn light, and drew in a sharp breath. "Then I guess there's nothing left to fight over." Ty studied him, his chest tight. There was no triumph in Nathan's surrender, no victory to claim, just the quiet acknowledgement that their paths had finally diverged. "You're right," Ty said. "There isn't." Ty watched him go, a strange ache rising in his chest. He hadn't wanted to hate Nathan, and now he didn't. All he felt was a quiet sadness, for the years wasted, for the walls built, for the man who had spent so much time chasing shadows. As Nathan's figure melted into the darkness, Ty exhaled deeply. The ranch behind him stood still, the night finally loosening its grip. He closed his eyes for a moment, whispering to himself more than to anyone else, "It's over." And in that moment, it was. Not with shouts, not with fists, but with truth spoken, choices made, and two men finally stepping onto separate paths. The night at Heartland grew quiet once more. The barn settled into stillness, its wooden beams creaking softly as though sighing with relief after holding the weight of so many unsaid words. The gravel path where Nathan had walked away lay empty now, just a stretch of earth under the pale glow of the moon. But it wasn't just a path. It was a mark of choice, a dividing line between the life Nathan had been chasing and the new one he might finally try to build. Ty stood alone for a long moment, staring into the dark where Nathan's figure had disappeared. There was no pride in his heart, no celebration of victory, only a steady ache, the kind that comes from endings that are necessary but not easy. He turned his gaze toward the ranch house, where the faint outline of Amy's silhouette flickered against a window. The thought of her, the thought of Lindy asleep inside, reminded him of why he had stood so firm tonight. Love had guided him, love had saved him, and now love was what would carry him forward. The truth was simple, though it had taken years and countless battles to reach it. Not every story ends with both sides getting what they want. Some stories end with letting go, with walking away, with acceptance instead of conquest. Nathan had come to Heartland full of anger, full of envy, full of fire, and he left with something different. Not peace yet, but the possibility of peace. A chance to become more than the bitterness that had shaped him. Ty stepped back into the barn, his hand brushing over the worn wooden door as he closed it behind him. The sound echoed softly, final but gentle. He knew this conversation would stay with him forever, not as a scar, but as a reminder. A reminder that battles fought with words can sometimes cut deeper than any wound, but they can also heal. As the night deepened, the narrator's voice lingers in the silence. Not every fight is meant to be won. Some are meant to be ended, and in the quiet ending of this long rivalry, Ty and Nathan both found something they had been missing. Truth. For Ty, it was the truth that love is worth defending at all costs. For Nathan, it was the truth that letting go can be the first step toward freedom. Their paths may never cross the same way again, but this final conversation will echo in their hearts, a turning point that changed them both. The camera would fade from the barn to the moonlight above, casting silver light over Heartland. The ranch stood still, strong and whole, its silence no longer heavy but calm. Life would continue here, with new challenges, new joys, and new choices waiting just beyond the horizon. And as the screen fades to black, one final line closes the story. Some endings are not about loss. They're about finding the strength to walk forward. The words linger, leaving the audience with both closure and curiosity, knowing this chapter has ended. But the story of Heartland, in all its love and struggle, will always go on.